Welcome back to Collate Discovery. I am joined by Pere, a founding engineer here at Collate. How you doing, Pere?
Hey, Shawn. Oh, good. Thank you for having me.
Well, this is going to be fun. So, we released data contracts in version 1.9 recently, and we actually did a discovery video on that. But even more recently, in our 1.10 release, we beefed them up significantly. And I want to have a conversation with you about the feature, why someone would care, what it looks like in the real world, and how that looks in Collate. Kind of taking that abstract concept of data contracts and making it real. So people look at it and go, oh, okay, I see how that applies to me. Are you ready to do that?
Let's go for it and we'll see what happens.
All right. Hit me, man.
Awesome. So, first of all, kind of just 2 cents on what it is that we are trying to do here. And it all boils down to data landscape and data itself within an organization.
Mhm.
It's a tricky topic to get right. And it's not only about because there's huge amounts of data that are moving through many different pieces and places in the platform and whatnot.
Mhm.
Actually, a big chunk of the work that you have to solve, or at least that I had to solve when I was working as a data engineer, is actually all of this cross team communication because data does not live by itself. Data
Right.
just gets created somewhere by some people, gets moved to another place where another team that may or may not know how these things are happening are going to change it and curate it and basically fill all of their use cases. And then another team on top of that is going to keep doing their own stuff, just basically working towards your goals, working towards what it is that makes sense for you, for your customers, or the stakeholders within the organization itself, right?
Yeah.
So it's not only about the hops that the data does, it's also how within the same organization we keep sharing a bit and we keep aligning and we keep reaching on an agreement on, okay, how this specific piece of data that I'm preparing is going to be used by another team. Because otherwise, we start with having the typical horror stories where you just
Mm.
get these lag alerts in the morning or the pager duty saying, hey, your pipelines are failing. Why? I haven't touched this pipeline, I haven't touched that table in months. Then you go in there, column not found. You did not change that column, but you are basically feeding from someone else's plate. You are eating from someone else's data. So maybe they have to do some changes, and communication may or may not be as streamlined as you would like to be.
Mhm.
So in the end, you need to go pick up the pieces and try to understand, okay, what's going on. So that could be kind of one very typical case. I think that we've all even seen that. And there's kind of these, I'm going to say maybe internal rule that when you are working as a part of a data team with other data teams, this kind of communication and these kinds of alignments, they happen naturally, right? Because you've felt this pain. So it's
Yeah.
like, okay, hey, I'm going to change this. I'm going to shoot a few emails. I'm going to try to figure out how to make the variations that my data has to make
Yeah.
as seamless as possible for other people. But in the end, not all of the data is created or is curated by data teams. There's backend and software engineers, there's analysts, there's data scientists. So there's a bunch of other people that they have their own specific business and operational goals, but
Right.
their goal itself does not necessarily need to be data. They have their own knowledge, they have their own specific ways of doing things. And if they need to remove or rename a column because new application or something, whatever change they have to make, it makes the most sense, they are just going to do it, right?
Yeah.
So how do we figure out all of these different people with different goals, with different mindsets, with different technical expertises, with different background overall,
Mhm.
we can at least align on, hey, how can we all use this data properly? So that's kind of the main thing that we are trying to solve here with data contracts. How do we basically help people reach these agreements? How do we help people align on what you can expect of the data and also how you can use this data safely and consciously so that basically you are not breaking any internal rules as well.
So it's that single source of truth regarding what this thing is. People can go to this single place and understand where things are coming from, where they're going to, and you could set alerts and rules to, if something changes, like a column name changes or a column disappears, that'll set off an alert because that can have impact downstream.
You can frame it like that, maybe not trying to be nitpicky, but
No,
the
no, go
source
ahead.
of truth of what the table is or what a pipeline is, that comes from the metadata itself, right? And for example, in Collate, and now I'm just going to start sharing the screen here. So I'm landing in my customers table in Collate. My source of truth is that I can come and I can check how these columns are looking like. I can see the columns that they have. I can see the types that are in. So this would be my source of truth. This would be a way that I can come here, and this is a reflection, a snapshot on how this customer's table is looking like, in this case, in Redshift. Instead, when we are talking about contracts, is more in terms of, okay, today I have these 7 columns. And maybe from the 7 columns from my own specific use case, I'm interested in this case, I'm going to be very simplistic. I'm interested in 2. For whatever analytics I'm building on top of that, I'm just interested into the customer ID and the first name. So that would be the part that we are basically putting a stamp on. That's the part that we are agreeing that, hey, whoever is creating this customer's table is basically sitting down with the different parties that are going to be consuming the data of this table, and they can say, okay, there's actually a couple of things about this table that they are not going to change. And these couple of things are going to be, for example, the customer ID and the first name columns. Then maybe the last name at some point, maybe we decide to remove it, or the first order column, we just, I don't know, we rename it, we move it to another table. That's going to be fine. This is going to still reflect the last shape of my metadata, but that's still going to hold this contract valid. This is still going to be true because the pieces that we aligned on are still applicable today.
That's an important differentiation. Yeah, it's really, yeah, I get where you're going with it. These are it's the single source of agreements about what we're going to do with it.
That's it. That's it. And one of the things that you said, oh, in 110, we are changing a lot of things in the data contracts. And one of the things that we are changing is actually the look and feel, right? In 1.9, it was kind of a bit boxy, compartmentalized and whatnot. But we were actually going with something that felt a bit more, maybe formal is not the right word, but something that you actually feel that you can literally put a stamp on and say, okay, this is the document where the different parties in the organization are sitting down and are saying, this is how this table is going to behave. And then if my own pipelines are failing because the customer ID column disappears, because whoever is creating this table decides that they don't want to keep track of the customer ID anymore, then it's this failure, quote unquote, it's not on me. I need to collaborate with whoever I need to in order to unblock the situation and move on. But actually, there's going to be someone that we can basically say, hey, actually, you are responsible for making this change. We decided that this column was going to be important. What do we do from now on?
So a regular human can look at this, read it, understand what it is, and find the interested parties, as opposed to trying to dig through maybe a YAML file or something.
Exactly. Because in the end, there's YAML files. They feel tacky, right? We have a YAML file here as well, because there's people that, I don't know, if you feel more comfortable just reading through a YAML, that's completely fine. Or if you really just want to basically play a bit here with the APIs and whatnot, and you want to change the data contract directly by playing with the YAML file, that's completely fine. But as we were saying, when we are talking about data, there is many different user personas that are coming into play. So we need to make sure that we are actually creating and curating something that everyone in the organization can feel related to and can feel that it's useful for them. Because in the end, if we don't reach these agreements, problems are going to come.
Yeah.
Because data is going to keep changing. There are going to be, like, not here I'm not even talking about some teams kind of moving or just killing data around, but maybe there's an issue with the source of our information. So in that case, maybe we're breaking the SLAs, and I'm creating one dashboard that has to be hourly refreshed. But I can only do that in my dashboard if my source is actually refreshed every hour. So
Yeah.
here we're trying to really put down all of these rules that are going to help us figure out which kind of data we can create based on the dependencies, based on these ingredients that we're going to have. So in this case, just pulling a bit more the thread on these SLAs. If someone is demanding me, hey, Pere, you actually have to build a dashboard that updates every minute, but my data freshness can only be every hour. I know that I'm already never, ever going to be able to do that, because at least it's going to take me 1 hour plus some processing time. So let's put 1 hour and 1 second. That's final offer that we can reach here.
Yeah.
Or maybe someone is telling me, for audit purposes, you need to create another table that curates, manages all of this information, and we need to keep that for 10 years. And the retention of this data is only going to be 3 years. So if I need to start today, I already know that I'm going to be missing 7 years, right? So what do we do from there? Okay, well, the problem in this case, it's not going to be the table, it's not going to be the contract, but at least I know that I need to figure out where I go and fish this information that I need, these other sources, these other pieces that I need to pick up and puzzle around in order to be able to finish my use cases in there.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it makes it, I mean, again, a normal person can go and read this. Like, if you've got somebody making these requests of every second, it's like, well, look, it's every hour. That's the best we can do. So
Exactly.
nice.
And those are questions that come a lot, right? And there's a lot of people that say, oh, faster is better, or how can we make sure that these things, that my pipelines, my tables, my dashboards get refreshed even sooner and even sooner and even sooner. And just trying to code and making sure that the original source of truth is supporting that, that's usually very hard. That means picking up the phone a lot of times, calling a lot of people, trying to understand, okay, hey, I need to figure out how this data is behaving. So this is a lot of, maybe let's call it crowdsourcing effort that we need to do, that, okay, different people, they need to sit down, they need to start picking up and curating this information, because this is very valuable information. This is something that if we don't really have clear at the origin, whichever pieces we're going to keep building on top, they might not be able, in this case, to fulfill these SLAs. Then another super important part that it's gaining more and more weight as time passes is actually the terms of service, because now everyone, every team in every company, in every part of the world, it's building better ML models and better AI agents and AI-powered automations and whatnot.
Yeah.
But there's also the other side of the coin, which is the compliance teams saying, okay, we need to make sure that whatever it is that we are building, we are following the rules, because we are SOC 2, we are ISO, we are whichever
GDPR, yeah,
number
it's
of
just like,
stamps, exactly, whatever stamps and medals we have on our product, we need to make sure that they are still valid. So having a place that someone is coming, is curating about, these are the permitted usages or the restricted usages that you can have on this on this data. For example, here I can create business dashboards, I can prepare churn analysis, but you know that these two values are going to be masked or anonymized, that this is only going to be used for internal use, or that I literally cannot train any models on that, because we are talking about customers table, and we just need to make sure that we are following the right regulations. So putting this here, it's, let's say, giving us some insurance in the future, because any teams that are going to come and play with this data, they know what to expect. It's not like I will find at some point in the future a chatbot somewhere that it's answering data about my customers. And if I find it, at least I'm going to be able to say, hey, look at this piece of paper. This is what we actually agreed on. So we need to figure out what to do from here.
So this is informational only, but it's directly attached to that table.
Exactly. Exactly. So the goal of these data contracts, as you said, this is kind of it's a piece of information here, but that has its own approval process. Someone will create it, someone will own it. We are also currently building these approval workflows to make sure that, okay, every time that I'm trying to create or that I'm trying to change a data contract, I need someone from my compliance team to review my terms of service. I need someone from my data operations team to review the shape of my data, to review maybe the security of the data, or even the quality of the data itself. So as you can see, we are putting many different lenses into this contract. There's kind of a more informative part, such as what this contract means, what can we do, how is the underlying data behaving, to other parts that we are even today already enforcing, such as this is the schema of my data. Those are kind of the semantic, these business rules that my data has to follow, and a subset of data quality tests that we
So
need to ensure that are
just
always
real
passing.
quick, at the top, that's informational only. What you've gotten to down here, these are actual tests. These are things that take place and can pass or fail.
Exactly, exactly. And all of these pieces here are in the end what are powering our execution history, what are powering this nice little level on top that it's telling us, hey, you can use this table, go ahead, feel free, the data is there, but at least you should know that the contract is failing. And then I will land in my contract and I will say, okay, there is quite a few things that are passing fine. So my schema is looking good, my semantics are looking good, but the amount of rows that I might be expecting on this table is currently not passing. So be careful, maybe you have less data than the one that you need.
Scroll back to the top real quick, because I don't remember if we covered this or not. Because we were talking about this being a little bit higher, a little bit higher. So this contract, see, there's a version, there's a status approved, who the owners are. So you can have the versions. This goes back to kind of what you're mentioning earlier. This might be informational only, but it goes through an approval process. So somebody's name is associated with the fact that it was created, it was checked, it was approved, and it establishes an ownership or a knowledge trail of the fact that these terms of service and SLAs, that people know it and approved that this is what it is. It's not just some rando coming in and typing things up and boom, hey, we're just kind of covering our butts, because you've got dates associated with that and everything.
Exactly, that's it. I think that you put the right keyword here. These are not just random blabbers. And there's this nice structured process that allows us to get into a place where we say, this is what we're agreeing upon, so that we can all, let's go, quote unquote, can work in peace.
Sweet. So did we have anything else to look at here?
I think that we covered most of it. I did not try to go too much in depth with the semantics or quality because I know that was already discussed in the initial video. So I'm sure that
Yeah.
people might already be aware of. So I was just trying to dig a bit deeper into basically the high level of how a contract might be useful for us and kind of these new nice little pieces such as the SLAs or the terms of service and how we can expect to use them within the organization.
Yeah, and it goes beyond even just the usefulness of finding things that changed, right? You know, why something broke downstream. This is a good CYA as well. Like if some regulatory agency comes to you and is going after you, it's like, look, here is our paper trail. Here is what we do. And you can use that to help bolster any possible claims against you, that were false, for example.
Yeah, for example, I mean, especially around things like data retention, that's kind of a tricky topic because there's certain things that you need to keep longer than X or even shorter than another time window. So
Yeah.
making sure that we have all of these ingredients nice and ready for whenever we need them, that's actually going to save us time and headaches in the long run.
Awesome. Thank you, Pere. That was a very informative journey. I appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thank you, Shawn. See you on the next one.